Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for your donations. Thanks for participating in advance. And if you've only seen the email, here I am. Hey. And I would love to introduce Tiffiny Fyans, senior instructor, longtime Nei Tsang practitioner and Qigong practitioner. And I'm so grateful that she's here teaching for the 6-week course. If people have questions and stuff as we go along, I'm sure there'll be a good time where Tiffany will ask any questions, and you can click raise hand or kind of flag us down. But sometimes when you do this, we don't see everybody on the same screen. You can unmute yourself. I'm sure you'll work it out. Also, you can type in the chat and I can ask a question for you when the time is right. I guess that's about it. So without any further ado, here's Tiffiny.
Hi, everybody. So happy to be here with you. I'm doing the first 3 weeks of November and the first 3 weeks of December, getting started in Nei Tsang self-help routine. So this is my second series here with the Nei Tsang Zoom courses, and I think I'm starting to get the hang of it a little bit. Just want to see if I can figure out how to see everyone.
Go to gallery view.
Okay. There we go. Oh, nice. Okay, great. All right, I'm just going to start by taking a few breaths with you all as other people are still entering the waiting room. And we can start warming up our hands a little bit as well. I had a question before this course from someone asking about a question about the preliminary material from April, and he asked, what is the tiger mouth? So that was a tool that we used for knocking on the door of life. And the tiger mouth is the name of a particular Qigong tool that our body has in the region of our hands. In the webbing of the hand between the thumb and the forefinger, when we rest the thumb at, as if it's just kind of hanging down from the palms if they're facing the ground. And by letting the thumbs hang down like that, we get this nice tiger mouth right here. It's an energy center that we can connect together and start to open this sort of channel between each one. If we put them next to each other and pull apart, it's similar or akin to when we hold the palms facing each other to build a chi ball. And as we build that chi ball, we can start to stretch it and push it back together and start to feel the energy field between our hands become more and more palpable and open and build that chi ball between our palms. So then you can actually take your tiger mouth and kind of move it to be on each side of that chi ball and use it. And there's reasons why we want to develop this particular energy channeling tool, one of which is in the Buddha palms, which some of you are familiar with, where we drop this tiger mouth region in the webbing of the hands back and down to the eye of the hips, and we floss through the hips with the tiger mouth, as if there's an energy channel, an extended chi ball moving there. And this helps us to drop down into the support of the earth and to bring that earth support up and start to circulate it up around that sacral cavity region, which then forms a little wheel that helps to circulate energy up the spine, and then with the help of gravity, also bring it down the front of the body. So in describing this tiger mouth and the way that it can help assist the water wheel at the sacral center, I'm addressing a question that came in before the class, but it does help us to drop right into the kind of like energy of the lower body, which we'll be working with in our class, and with the tools of our hands, which we'll be developing and working with as well. Yeah, so as we start to kind of bring our hands warm and our energy into our hands, we can just start to notice all the different articulations in the fingers. We have many. And the articulations between the metatarsals of the fingers, that our hands can fold from side to side. They can open. They can fold the fingers towards the palm, and they can open. And we can use our thumbs. There's many, many tools on our hands that we'll go over more. And we can shake our hands, releasing the wrists, the elbows, and the shoulders. And shaking that down into the earth, into the ground. When I step back that far. The hands and the feet have a relationship with each other as well. So as we're working the hands, we can notice where the feet are and what their relationship with the ground is. So let's just, for a minute, notice that we have kind of like 4 paws, the feet and the hands, and let's feel them all at the same time, like pushing the feet down into the ground and extending the chi from the hands forward. Almost like a cat that's just stretching all 4 paws at the same time. And notice what that does to your back. It opens us into the Ming Men, into the back. Just energetically. And so we can, again, like push your energy into your feet and hands. This will anchor the femurs together a little bit and put a little bit of a torsion in the hips. And the shoulder blades roll down the rib cage, bringing the shoulders back and down. Let's do that again. So these feet and hands are like the peripheral terminals of our being. It's like the very edges of our tree, along with our face. So we can bring our energy into that very peripheral terminus of ourselves, toes, fingers, tailbone. And then we notice that what we're actually here to start working on is the opposite of that, is the very center of our being, right here, our soft underbelly. And so we're going, let's take our energy from the soft underbelly then and see how our kinesthetic awareness and attention can go from that and then extend from there into the shoulders and hips and out into our terminal points of our hands and feet. It kind of brings us into the animal of our body, into this fact that our body is a beast, is a being that has a lot of different feelings in it, moving our energy from the head to the fingers, toes, feet, and hands. And then we can bring it back into the belly. And I want to help you get permission to bring a sense of fun and interest, and just to say that there's no right way of being in your body, of no right thing to be feeling, that this is an exploration that we're going to share with each other. So as a continued way of approaching this work, let's open the tiger mouth that we talked about just by bringing our attention and our mind's eye into that area. And we'll use that now to knock on the door of life. And the door of life being a center on the spine, opposite the navel, in the kidney center. As you're working on yourself, with yourself, feel free to make noise. It's actually really helpful. As we work, you can sigh and grunt. Sometimes you might cry or laugh. Sometimes you might groan or moan or growl. But as we approach our belly here, we're giving the beast of ourself a chance to express what has been held there and what's ready to be met and reflected and digested. We may find all different kinds of movements coming from the center as we start approaching the pressure gradients inside, the pressure gradients between different compartments that are held by membranes together in groupings. Those pressure gradients, there can be pressure that's pushing different compartments apart or pressure that's squishing them together. So as we work, we will potentially experience like spontaneous shifts of those pressure gradients that might make us belch or have flatulence, or just move our body in different directions to, with the intelligence of the body, it's, oh yeah, if I go like this, it's going to help release this area. That pressure is now being listened to, so it's talking back. It's giving a feedback loop. And just laying another layer of the groundwork. Our hands then will become imbued with what is called the yi. And that is the composition of three parts of our attention and selves, all combined together into a concentrated attention. And those three parts are our mind. So it's like where our attention and thoughts are going. Our eyes, whether it be a visual eye or like actually using them, the eye power of vision, of imaging, of creating an image, and the heart, all mixed together. And so let's just now explore what that might mean to each one of you individually, just bringing, let's just, with the hands themselves, bringing your mind, your eye power. Your eyes can be closed while you do that, or they can be open, and your heart energy. And your hands may start to feel bigger and warmer. fatter, softer. And you think about how much of the brain is linked with the hands and the hand movements and the opposable thumbs, finger movements. We put our attention into our hands, a lot of the brain already lights up. We'll bring our breath, energy with the heart, mind, and eye. So now you can put your hands together or rest them on your belly. I'm going to talk for a few minutes here just about my story and then about my understanding of the sort of history and source of the Nei Tsang practice. And then we'll go into a beginning practice of working on ourselves. I hope your body feels kind of warmed up and that as I speak, you'll keep feeling your feet, your hands, your belly, your back, and have your breath moving into those areas. So I just want to share a little bit about myself here, the map of how I got here. I took some notes. When I was a few decades younger, I had a friend who was attending the Shiatsu Institute in San Francisco, where Gilles Marin was teaching a Nei Tsang block. And she got really excited by this work and offered me a session, which I eagerly accepted. And in this session, she gave me an experience of having my kidney touched. She went in, she said, "Can I go in and touch your kidney?" This was after warming me up a lot, but I was like, okay, sure. Is that even possible? And she went in and my eyes were closed. I was breathing. I was, and I had an experience with her touching my kidney that just like lit up the inside of my body. It was like, oh, it gave a counterpoint for me to all of the stimulation that I was confronted with on the outside that I was always trying to meet. It's like, oh, there's a lot going on there. And it was a very kind of clean, really beautiful sensation. So I was going from Salt Lake City, where I was living at the time, to San Francisco for a New Year's Eve party in 1991. And I got in to see Gilles. He had a 3-month waiting list, but he happened to have a cancellation. I called in the morning. He fit me in that afternoon. And I walked from the Lower Haight through the Mission to his office on Dolores Street. And on my way to my session, I bought at a convenience store, I stopped and got a pint of Haagen-Dazs coffee ice cream, which I was wont to do in those days on at least a weekly basis, if not daily. And I started to peel the top off and just ate the whole thing like an ice cream cone as I was walking to this session, just enjoying myself. And so I arrived at the session feeling really good and laid down, and Gilles laid me down on a mat on the ground. There was a big, beautiful rug underneath, and he had some like Thai mats that held my legs up, and I laid there. It was warm, and he worked on me. And then after a while, he started to go into my liver center, and he went in and touched my liver in much the same way that Julie had contacted my kidney just months before. And it was like my whole system just erupted in tears and all this feelings. And I don't know if the ice cream set me up for that, or if it was a painful breakup that I had that fall, or just everything that had ever happened or was happening. But it was this huge, emotional release that I'd never really had the opportunity to be supported through before. And it was really beautiful, and it came and went. And then we did the rest of the session. And I was even more curious now about this work. And so I signed up for the next weekend workshop, which was the following May in Santa Cruz. And I went to Santa Cruz for the weekend with a bunch of people that had all been doing it for a while. Lee Holden was there, some friends that I made that I have to this day. And one of the things I remember in this like forest of work that, I was sort of getting lost in the forest, but we did a bone breathing meditation. It was the first Taoist Nei Tsang practice that, I laid down and was trying to breathe into my bones and visualize my bones and release exhaust energy from my bones. And I was like able to, tune in every now and then, but I was mostly, okay, where are my bones? There they are. And my mind was wandering. And I went back to Utah after that, and I went back into my massage practice at the Living Energy Center. And I practiced some Nei Tsang on my clients, but I was doing a lot of cranial work and sports massage on the Utah Jazz, actually, at that time. And I, one day, a couple months later, I had had a really busy day. I was exhausted after working on a lot of people. And I remembered bone breathing. So I laid down on the floor next to the table in my massage room. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to try this bone breathing. Just felt like that would be the thing to do. And it just clicked. It was as if from the first time that I had done it and just didn't feel that connected to it, but made an effort over 2 months of ignoring it, to this point in time, my body had been like learning it. And I laid there and I did the bone breathing, and I felt my muscle tissue and tendons all relaxing and warming up and like softening around my bones. And I felt my bones like getting more and more crystalline. And that feeling that I had had in my kidney when Julie touched it was now like kind of moving through my bones, this very clean, crystalline, beautiful feeling. So then I was even more curious, and I decided to come back to San Francisco for 6 months and do Gilles' course, which he was doing every Wednesday for 2.5 hours. He was doing level 1, and then there would be like an hour break, and then he would do level 2 for 2.5 hours. And I thought, I'll go out there, do level 1 and 2 at the same time, and come back to Utah and have that under my belt. And I ended up actually getting really pulled into a whole inner healing process, developing a clientele in San Francisco, which made it really hard to go home. And then San Francisco and then the East Bay became my home for many, many years. And I became a teacher, and I ended up going to study with Master Chia, becoming a senior instructor, and going to Thailand every year for about 10 or 12 years during a time period where I was running a mentorship course, bringing students to my house 1 weekend a month for a year to take them through a certification course to become Nei Tsang practitioners. So that's my story. And I hope that through our work here that you may find that there's, interest and curiosity, and that it will become a benefit to your life as it did to mine. I'm going to breathe for a couple minutes.
Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for sharing your story there, Tiffiny.
Thank you for listening. So I did that mentorship course until I became a mother, and that happened in 2011. And and that was at an advanced age. So I credit the Nei Tsang work and the Taoist work that I learned over all those years with being able to become a mother at an advanced age. And one of my specialties with Nei Tsang has been working with fertility. So now, I hope this isn't too much talking, but I'm just going to segue into a little bit of history of Nei Tsang as I understand it, and then we'll dive into some work on ourselves. Is that okay? All right. So as I understand,
Actually,
yeah.
real quick, what's the difference between Nei Tsang and Qigong?
So in my understanding, Qigong is like an energy work where it's like Tai Chi, energy work where we're moving our body through different forms. It may be very slow forms, but there's, an external element to moving the qi. And Nei Kung would be like an internal energy work where it's more of a visualization and a direction of the energy inside. On the outside, it might look like you're just laying down or meditating. Does that make sense? Like fusion, fusion, I think of the 5 elements, I would consider that a Nei Kung exercise because we're connecting with colors and elements and things inside. We add a little Qigong to our fusion practice when we do the venting, when we lift the palms up, the sides of the body, extended arms, and then we vent down the front of the body. You've done that with your fusion. Yeah. So in my understanding, the Taoist white cloud monks are the head waters of our lineage from China. And one of our teachers, Juan Li, has talked a lot about these white cloud monks, and it's very interesting. He visited one of their centers at one point, but it had been turned into a bar or a tavern. And he went into the back room of the tavern and sat down on an old stone sort of step. And as he sat there, he felt like the energy of these monks doing a certain kind of practice just moved through his body. And he sat there for quite a while and learned from the place and what was happening with his sacrum and the energy moving through his body. So that's a beautiful story. So let's see, when I taught in the Yucatan though, I had a generational curandero come to my class, and afterwards he invited me to his clinic where he then showed that they had a version of what we call Nei Tsang there, where he worked anchoring all of the tendons coming up the yin channels of the legs, like very strongly into the bone, and then into this area right here at the base of the pubic bone in the groin called the qua, right here. And then he went up, lifted everything here from the pubic bone up towards the navel, like really opened the sacral cavity towards the navel, and then proceeded to, what his image was for his work was to put each octopus arm into the right place in the abdomen, and did this really deep anchoring work of the tendons around the 8 points of the abdomen. And then he wrapped his clients in a rebozo and sent them home to basically lay down for a while and let this new anchoring take hold. And I thought that was really interesting how similar it was to Nei Tsang and yet different. In Hawaii, I worked with a native Lomi Lomi practitioner who did work on the belly that seemed really similar to Nei Tsang. And I had a Thai massage from like a farmer in Thailand whose family had a massage tradition for generations. And he did like a really beautiful belly work and work all around the external genitals, which very much seemed to be Nei Tsang. So I think what I'm trying to elucidate is that probably Nei Tsang type work has been in folk healing traditions all over the world, and that we have one of these lineages that's here with us now. There's a book called Reflections on the Sea by, oh my gosh, I'm spacing her name right now. Does anyone know who that's by that can share it with us? She's a Japanese woman, an acupuncturist who still lives and teaches. Anyway, it's called Reflections on the Sea, and it's from a Japanese tradition that also has like a whole belly approach. So I feel like at this point in time, you know, we can like look at all the work that's being done on the belly and learn from it. And when I was studying with Master Chia, I learned about his teacher, whose name was Master Moi. And he lived on an island in a lake in Thailand, and had just like a string of clients that came to him in a boat for him to work on their bellies. And he also did work, which we learned later, 30 years after Master Chia studied with him, a woman showed up at his Tao garden in Thailand, who had also been a student of Master Moi. Her name is Kuni. And she brought a whole piece of Master Moi's work to Master Chia that he hadn't himself yet learned, which was the Karsai Nei Tsang work, which is the work actually around and in the genital area at the base of the body. So that work, you know, is, I guess, what do I want to say about it? It's something that is available, that she teaches, and that it's sort of like more advanced, that obviously we would be very careful about approaching, but it does speak to even self-work. There's like the pressure gradients that are in the abdomen and the kidneys obviously extend to the pelvic floor and to the area around the genitals and to all of the vessels there. So as we breathe, like that area is included, and it's important. It's an important part of our body that we can, being most of us maybe from a Victorian lineage, it's maybe inherent in our upbringing to kind of put a black bar over that area and just not include it. And so, but it is like really important to our health to have the circulation move through all of our body. Okay, thank you for hearing the histories and the lineage. Are there any questions? All right. Just have to stretch my legs for a second. Okay. Trying to think of exactly where to go next.
Actually, there is a question from Austin.
Yeah.
Hey, just real fast about the tiger mouth, and thank you for sharing all of that, by the way, that was great. But with the tiger mouth, do you just mean to bend the thumb around? Are you just bending the thumb around and stimulating the Lao Gong? Is that what's happening?
Yeah. You're like, this is the Lao Gong, right?
The center of the palm?
Yeah. So when you drop the thumb toward the same position, the same place that the Lao Gong is facing, and then you just relax this line that comes down the radial side of the wrist of an arm, then yeah, it will stimulate the Lao Gong, but it has its own.
Oh, now I see. It's more
Yeah.
at an angle. It's in the same plane as like your index finger.
Yes.
Ah, and then that area.
It makes like it's where your thumb used to be poking out when you were holding your fingers and thumbs all out in the same like star-like manner. Then when you drop your thumb, you suddenly have a whole, like, it's in the place where your thumb was coming out, but now it's a soft.
And now it's dropped down, and that's rotated 90 degrees.
Yeah, exactly.
The joining valley. Got it.
Yeah. And so with the tiger mouth open, it changes the orientation of the wrist. I'm not saying that I hope you're not hearing this, this should always be in this position. It's just that it is a tool that we can use. So
Oh,
yeah.
and that's what you're rubbing. And then when you're knocking, I see now. And then when you're knocking against the door of life, you're knocking against it then with that part between your thumb and index.
Yeah, thank you so much for
Got it.
for peeling that apart for us. That's really helpful.
Yeah, I'm an engineer. That's what I do.
Awesome. Beautiful. I see Austin still has a hand raised. No? Okay. All right. All right, well, so that is one tool that we can use to knock on the door of life, to knock down the, to knock down the hips, to knock down the yang side of the legs. It's sort of like a drum head almost that has a little bit of a resonance to it. So we've learned with modern science that anywhere that we hit, it creates stem cells. That is like an innate kind of healing mechanism built into the body. So when we have an impact, the body then releases stem cells from that location to help heal that location right away. But then we can hack that, which the Taoists did long ago, and do a lot of tapping and a lot of hitting and tapping to basically build the stem cells. And then we can create different areas inside, areas of awareness inside our body where we can pull and absorb those stem cells and that awareness in. So for example, we can pull, when we are tapping or hitting ourselves, we can pull that awareness into the bones to bring those stem cells into the bones and anchor it into the bones. And those bones are the birthplace of our red blood cells. So this helps the quality of our blood when we work with our bones. All right, so other tools that we can work with are, I want to make sure that I look at this. So the whole palm of the hand is a tool. And then we can take the palm and start to create distinct other areas that we'll be using when we put our hands on ourselves and start working. If you think of the palms of your hands, if you're imaging them from the inside like a screen, and you know, it's like the pixel quality, the resolution quality that you have in your hands. As we work, we're going to be increasing the resolution, the pixel number of pixels in our hands that's present in our brain. So it'll get richer and richer in the hands. So with the whole palm of the hand we'll use, and then we have aspects of the hand, the heel of the hand. If you just press the heel of the hand, maybe against your leg or against your other hand. In this little box on Zoom, I feel so limited in really demonstrating what I want to, because if you were all sitting around me, I'd probably have my hands on the top of my leg like this, sitting and just showing you, like pressing the heel of your hand here. Yeah. And then we have the ulnar region of the hand, which is, we call it the ulnar knife, even though it's not sharp, but it has this like long knife-like or plane of contact that's long and skinny. So that ulnar knife would go from on the pinky side, from the wrist all the way to the tip of the pinky. And to explore that tool, maybe rub it a little bit, wake it up. And then we'll put that tool at the qua. And the qua is the name for the inguinal area on the inside. It's like the groin, the top inside part of the legs that goes from your, as is, the the top of your hip bone down to the sort of top corners of your pubic bone area. So this is another area that is really important to our work. So much of the blood supply that's going down the legs is coming down through the qua, and it helps when we work with it to have the vein blood, the venous blood returned. So this is an area at the qua that we want to, as we're working, start to soften the actual area here in the groin. And so if you're standing, or sitting, you can put your ulnar knife there at the qua and just start to warm up the qua there, and feel how this tool, if you rock it from the tip of the pinky to the wrist, and breathe and smile down. Just notice what's under your hands there. You're going over some vessels, you're going over some ligaments, some tendons. So you're feeling a couple of things here. You're feeling on the ulnar knife, you're noticing textures, you're noticing what it feels like to touch that area, which may not have been used as a tool before in your life very much. So it might start to feel a little tingly or sandpapery or something. So that's something that you'll start to build tolerance for. And then you're also going to build the sensation with this tool for what you're feeling on the other parts of your body, which can you start to feel your actual pulse with this ulnar knife? Then we slow down and start breathing and being like, where's my pulse? If our sacrum is pushed forward a lot and this area of the qua is really tight, you can still feel your pulse, but there's a certain quality that we can notice there of this pushed forward and of the sacrum being really pulled in tight. So we can try an exercise where you can put your hands here on the qua, use that to help move your sacrum back as if you're getting ready to sit down on a bar stool. Just a little. And then adjusting the feet so that you stay upright. And we're starting to approach that embracing the tree, that tree stance. So that's an open qua. That's a nice way to have your the energy flowing through your body as you're approaching your body, to have the whole thing receiving all the blood. And there's a lot of like strength issues and aging issues associated with the qua. So as we knock on the door of life, we can also use this ulnar knife to knock up and down the qua. And if you'll notice, that's the same area in which we floss through the hips, parallel to the ground. I'm just building the base for our self-work with the tools and with our relationship with the ground and our feet here. So thanks for jumping around with me. So another tool that we have is the base of the fingers at the top of the palm. And these are like the balls of your hand as opposed to the balls of your feet. So the hand is bowed a little bit with the fingers backwards to get this part of our tool. And so you now just maybe touch the ball of your hand and wake that up in your brain. Yeah. Rub them together, clap them together. Yeah. And now with our hands bowed like this, we can clap the balls of our hands together and then run like two plates that are rocking the rims around each other. You can take the running down the ulnar side of the palm, the heel of the palm, and up along the front part of that tiger mouth. So we're just going to explore the palm around the area before the fingers and thumbs. Yeah. There. This is going to be an important part of your tool for working on your own belly, this part of the palm. So we want to build the sensations there, be able to bring your energy, your smiling, self-love, compassion into the palms there. And I hope you'll do these exercises and awareness exercises over this week until our next class, when we'll be using them even more. So how does that feel? Does that feel more awake in there? Yeah. And then we have the fingertips. Yes. Oh, good. That looks good, Carmen. I like the look of that. Hi. So we can articulate each one of the fingers as we do during the Buddha palm. It's like extend the pinky out and release. Extend and bring all that chi into the ring finger and release. The middle finger, release. The index finger and the thumb. And we can shake our hands. Now let's bring all of our fingers towards the thumb and touch each one of the fingers to the thumb. And this is called the dragon beak. So we're going to bring them all in to the thumb and squeeze. And squeeze your lips and your pelvic parts. And release. Squeeze. And release. Squeeze. And release. And shake. To help the circulation when we're working on ourselves, we can every now and then scan from where we're working at the center to the periphery. A little rule of thumb. When we're working on ourselves, sometimes we can get into some place, some feeling, some material, and we can start to get a little bit into like a spin somewhere. So there's no one else there to sort of hold the space and help move the energy. So what we can do to hold and support ourselves is, if we're in a place that starts to feel like, okay, there's a lot here, we can keep our fingers or whatever tool we're working with in that area, our breath moving there, and then connecting with our mind and our breath to the periphery, all the way to the feet, the back, the skin, so that we're moving our energy from like these center places to the periphery and back. Like that's part of the breathing of our consciousness. One of the things that humans have gone for over time is symmetry. And internally, we're not symmetrical. And in our development, embryological development, we developed in like a spiral. And yet here on the outside, we're looking somewhat symmetrical and trying to appear symmetrical. Symmetry is one of the hallmarks of beauty and function and form. So it's just an interesting kind of overlay into this idea of going into the places inside that have these spirals, that have these unsymmetrical kind of roots to them, and then not abandoning our contact with those areas, like staying in contact with them while simultaneously becoming aware of and embracing like an external and internal symmetry that is anchored by our hands and feet. We have these 4, most people still have 4, and if you don't, then that's extra work. But your 4 paws, and the navel, which is roughly symmetrically right in the middle of those 4 paws. As we do Nei Tsang, we're drawn back into the formation of our organs. We're drawn back into the sort of roots of how we got here, into our development, and into a lot of aspects of ourselves that can't really be grasped intellectually or with the cognitive powers, but are more a continuum and that we're still a part of. That's, I think, why we want to do self-work, is to start to embrace all these parts of ourselves and create a place and time where all of those parts can show up. So yeah, the whole hand, all the different aspects of the hand, also the knuckles. Some parts of us, we might end up using our knuckles to work on ourselves. That can be a way to address and contact and move tissue. Even the thumb knuckle and this area here, what would you call that? It's not quite the heel of the hand. It's like I forgot what that's called. The base of the thumb at the wrist.
Mound of Venus?
Yeah, the mound of Venus. Yeah. And so the fingers, the tips of the fingers, are included in a whole toolbox. But they're not, the only tool. And developing the rest of the tools that we have is a big part of our work. It's beautiful. Warming up our fingers and hands before we work is a beautiful thing to do. Bending them back, squeezing, working the areas that we hold our phones and text and things, just like working some of that stuff out. Another tool is our feet. So if you're laying down, working on yourself, and you put your knees up and your feet on the ground, then your feet become an important part of your process of working on yourself, because they're a lever with which you can move and articulate any part of your spine toward the ground. And you can, for example, I wish I could just lay down and show you, but I don't quite know how to do that on Zoom right now. But if you're laying down with your feet up, on knees up and feet on the ground, and you're working and you feel an area that you want to put a little bit more movement into, you can use your feet to push, rotate, and rock your sacrum by virtue of your foot, the leverage of your leg. And you can bring that leverage anywhere on the spine, and then that'll have a very profound effect on your organs and on what you're feeling with your hands and tools. And in fact, when you're working on yourself on the ground, you might find that your feet, with your breath, start to be in motion a great deal of the time. There might be a lot of movement with your feet and your sacrum and rocking. And the feet can connect with the shoulder blades, the feet can connect with the sacrum. It can be symmetrical where both feet are pressing and you're rocking up the spine in the middle. And you can also use your feet one by one to press up into the opposite side to get a little bit of a, like a pressure up this way. From the left foot, if you press, you might find yourself rocking more on the right side of the sacrum, up to the right shoulder blade. And so start opening areas around interesting points in your abdomen where you're breathing and wanting to get in contact with. And in the classes after this introductory one, we will be getting into each set of organs that are associated with each one of the 5 elements and doing the techniques, self-techniques around those. So thanks for bearing with me as we just go through some of the approach and the basic tools and mindset that we need to get there. All right, so that is the tools. All right, is there any questions? Verena. Yay, hi. Okay, so I'm gonna do a time check. All right, perfect. So we're at about 11 here and we have about a half hour. So that gives us enough time to drop into a beginning Nei Tsang session. So I think that if you have the capacity to lay down on your back and put your feet on the ground and your knees up, that might be the most relaxing. But sitting down, standing up is fine too. Having your back on the ground to where you can have that much support though, I think is really nice. All of those spinal nerves being supported by your back, by the ground is good. Yeah, and then I think not seeing the screen is fine. I think that I will describe things verbally for you and just guide you through through a little session that you can do this week to start warming you up for our work next week. So I'm gonna, I think, guide the session as if you're laying down on your back with your feet on the ground. So if you're not doing that, then you can just adapt my instructions to your position, if that's okay. So open the bubbling spring area of your feet energetically. Feel it connected with the ground. If you'd like, you can lift your foot up and one by one and open it with your hands. The bubbling spring point being an energy center just underneath the ball of the foot. It would be the foot version of the Lao Gong point on the hand. And then press into that point on the foot, on the feet. And notice how you can press your kidneys against the ground. And just a few times, breathe and use your feet to express the kidney center against the ground underneath you. A little rocking. You can do it on a sheepskin, you can do it on a bed. Absolutely. Just look at the chat here. Yeah. So with your breath and this awareness on the connection between your feet and the kidneys, kind of building that connection in, that's going to be really key support for your work. And then you can rub your hands warm. And bring the Laogang point, the palm of one hand against your navel, and the other palm on top. And use your breath and your mind, eye and heart to connect your hands through your body to the ground beneath you. And bring your heart energy down. And just in honor of yourself as you're approaching this vulnerable area, this underbelly. And now imagine that your hands are a plate. And even though they're not a perfectly round plate, there are the sides of your hands as they're sitting on your belly. And you're gonna, as if you're gonna rock the rim of the plate around to make contact with your belly. So it might be the ulnar side of one hand and then around the heel of the hand of another. You're gonna rock the edges of your hands slowly, as if you were kind of rocking a plate on its rim, but slowly. So you have your breath connecting with a type of circle that your hands are bringing to your awareness all around your navel. And just notice what it feels like in each one of these areas around your belly. Is there anywhere that is hungry for a deeper work, or anywhere that feels tight, that feels like there's a bubble that pushes back, that draws in? Start to let yourself breathe in. Actually, as you get in touch with the areas around your navel, around your belly, where the rim of this plate is making contact, let anywhere from inside draw your breath in. So rather than pushing your breath down into your belly now, you're going to allow any one of these areas or a combination of them to be the suction force to draw in what air there is around and bring it in the outside into the inside, and then release anything from these areas that's ready to go. And go slow. And if you need to take a rest, you can just rest your hands and keep letting your breath move and be drawn in from the navel center. Now, occasionally remind yourself about the Ming Men point opposite the navel on the ground. There's so many layers to the belly between where your hands are resting and your back. You can use your feet to press a little bit and notice what happens to your hands, to your breath. There's a real intelligence just to the body here that you're completely welcome and have permission to explore what your body's asking for, to let the movements happen from that body intelligence. I think this is the most important part of the self-work, is to be in touch with yourself, with the rhythm of your own chi, the connection between your navel and Ming Men and pelvis. The fact that your feet can serve as this leverage point that brings areas that are under your hands more available for you, or can circulate parts that are closer to the ground towards the surface where you have more access, or to where you can start to breathe under them. Breathing as if you're breathing a sheet of air beneath your whole body. Breathing from the sacrum up to the shoulder blades. The tips of the lungs, of your lungs, are resting on your large intestine. The lungs go all the way down and lay against the large intestine. This area is so important. And breathing as if you're breathing a sheet of air beneath you, below you, expanding your kidneys into the ground will help this area where there's absorption between the lungs and the large intestine, to where they're communicating with each other through breath, movement, and through osmosis of fluids, protein molecules. One of the major causes of sickness and death in America, there's like about average of 17,500 people a day who die of lower lung infections and lung problems aside from cancer. And this area is so deep in our psyche. It's so deep. And breathing down into the area where the lungs and the large intestine connect may be one of the most powerful things we can do for our energy and our health. And as we're working on the rest of the belly, it will allow the processing of what comes to the surface, what's being released physiologically and emotionally, to be digested and processed through this attention to the breath. When we're breathing in this way, our ribs will literally move out to the sides. Excuse me. And so perhaps you can move your hands now from the middle of your belly to your sides and hold your lower rib cage. Especially paying attention to your back, the back of the bottom part of the ribs. And let your breath expand into your hands at the back bottom part of the rib cage. Breathing sort of laterally and then filling it into the back. As these muscles and tissues are becoming more mobilized by your breath, they'll get used to it and it'll get easier. As you're working with the bottom back part of your rib cage, bringing your breath energy between your large intestine and the lower lungs. Bring your awareness of your navel, even though you're not touching it. And now bring your hands back around the navel. And let this increased breath awareness from your kidneys, lower lungs, express up into your hands around your navel, and just notice if it feels any different as it did before. And now we'll take a couple of minutes and you can follow any pathways that may have arisen for you of interest as you rocked the rim of the plates of your hands around. If there was anything that felt like it was drawing your attention, just go ahead and follow it with your fingers, with your palms, with any of your tools to meet that need, to answer that call. Movements of your body, sounds, all of that is helpful. If it's coming, doesn't need to be forced. But we also will be aware of any suppressing that might be a habit. Don't squish the eyes on your fingers or hands. Let those eyes on your hands and fingers be soft and open, looking around. Now let's bring our hands back to the navel and do a little gathering. So at the end of a session, you can breathe into your hands at your navel. And then I would like to bring the hands and move them around in the direction of the intestine. So up the right side and down the left side. And just gather any parts and bring them closer to the navel. And then lay everything there to rest. And if you have the inner sphere in your consciousness from the April class, then you can let that inner sphere draw everything inside. Swirl it around, spiral it around. And then you can gently come back to sitting and back to the screen, taking your time. Now, David, I'd like to break into pairs or threesomes and just have like a minute or so for each person to give a little, to, have a chance to share.
Okay.
So we can break for like 4 or 5 minutes and then come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seem to have lost the area for that.
As David's working to get the break rooms going, is there anyone that wants to share with the whole group? What it was like to I know we have people from all different experience levels here, people who have been doing this for a long time and people for whom it's their very first approach. So it'd be really interesting to hear from you as if we were.
I'd like to share something if that's okay.
Oh,
Tiffany.
lovely. Thank you.
Wonderful work. I do have some shoulder issues, and when I try to go forward, you know, that's challenging. So I'm just wondering if you have any ideas. I mean, I put a pillow under them. I was laying down, but if you have any ideas for me, I'd love that.
Yeah. I feel you. That shoulder can come forward and want to, it can be hard. So indeed, if you can put pillows under your elbows and then use your feet a little bit more to move your body under your hands. And it's going to be a negotiation, you know, between areas inside that are calling for more pressure and your ability to give it. And so it's just going to call for that kind of patience and healing. Definitely respect the shoulder. And just going slow and letting the breath bring your hand. It's just going to be a continued negotiation. There's all kinds of, you know, shoulder things that can start to work out through this work. But I can't really see who's talking. Can you tell me your name? Who's talking?
I think that's Kate.
Kate. Oh, hi. Oh, hi, Kate.
Hi.
Yeah. Yeah. So have you had shoulder surgery?
No.
No. Sometimes I'll be laying on my back, and if my shoulder's bothering me, I will actually roll a little bit to the other side. And as part of my self work, you know, I'll bring this arm laying on my side up and just start to, while I'm breathing into the lower, it'll become like kind of a shoulder thing too, but it's like reaching up and using my hand to paint. I guess I'll go on the ground. Maybe I can do this on the Zoom. Use my hand to like paint the ceiling, reaching my fingers and hands in ways that, you know, they might not normally move. And I can then, just breathing and staying in that Nei Tsang state. And then you can roll back over, you know, and do more work, and using the feet here to bring this kind of motion. And as you're working, you can also rock your knees back and forth to help release tendons in the spinal nerves in the back. So there's just a lot of possibilities. Yeah. Did you figure that out, David?
Yeah, I had to reclaim
Okay.
the host. So
Yeah,
there's only a few minutes left.
Yeah.
Class.
I think it would be worthwhile for people to share for like 1 minute each.
Okay.
And then I'll just come back and do a short closing.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll do it.
All right.
Breakout rooms.
It's just 11:30 now, so I'll cut everyone loose, but I want to thank you for showing up and being here with us, and say hi to anyone who is coming to watch this video in the future. And I'm open to any questions that people might have between now and next week. If there's a ton of them, I might be overwhelmed, but I'll answer what I can. Right now I'm a homeschooling mom. But it's really fun to have the opportunity to come and work with you guys in this way. So your feedback is always so valuable for me to understand if I'm being articulate enough, if you're understanding things, if there's different questions and experiences, then, you know, we're part of the same field. So thank you so much. And please practice with your tools and breath and feet between now and next week, so that we can dive in. And I just actually am curious if anyone here has watched or been at the April class where we worked with the winds and the lower Qigong sphere. Yeah, is there anyone who didn't do that doesn't have a background in those winds?
I've never done that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I'm playing catch up also.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know everyone's busy, but if you have time to look at any, David, do you have an idea of those ones? If there's one that kind of gives the best overview? I know you kind of built
The
on
winds,
things.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll review my notes about them and then try to figure out where it is in which class.
Yeah, maybe we can have you dive into one of them because it's pretty important, the winds. And if there's a lot of people who haven't done it, then maybe I'll drop in a little bit, but this is actually a different class. So maybe, I don't know if that I will, but these are circular teachings. So, you know, you can almost dive in anywhere, and then everything that you learn will help elucidate the things that you learned before. So it doesn't necessarily have to happen in a linear fashion at all. But have a beautiful week, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks,
So much.
Tiffany, and thank all y'all. Thank you so much.
Hey, David, will you send out which class to look at over email?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Tiffany.
Bye.
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 Thank you.